Welcome to our review on photosynthesis. So the first thing we actually need to understand here then is that plants make their own food. So what they actually do is they're going to take in two substances, the carbon dioxide, which they take in from the air, and that enters our plant through pores called stomata, and then the water, which comes from the soil through the root hair cells. And what they'll also be doing is trapping energy in the form of obviously sunlight, and this is going to be trapped using the chlorophyll, which is the pigment found within the chloroplasts. Now that energy is needed to actually allow this process of photosynthesis to occur. On your exam paper you may be asked to write either the word equation or the balance symbol equation for photosynthesis. So the word equation first of all then is carbon dioxide plus water makes glucose plus oxygen. Obviously the sequence in which you write the carbon dioxide and the water or the glucose and the oxygen doesn't actually matter. And then our balance symbol equation is 6CO2 plus 6H2O makes C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Couple of points to note there. Number one, make sure that any of the numbers found after the element symbols are in the bottom right, so don't put them floating in the air, don't put them as giant numbers, anything like this. Always in the bottom right, that subscript position. And then make a note of what the numbers in front of the oxygen, the water and the carbon dioxide actually are. Okay, so they're all sixes in this case. The only chemical that doesn't have a 6 in front of it is our glucose, which you should remember is C6H12O6. We need to remember there are two stages to photosynthesis. The first one needs the light energy. And what actually happens there is we're going to use this light energy to split the water into two things. First thing is the waste oxygen gas, and the second thing are the hydrogen ions. Now, because this needs light energy, this can only happen during the day. The second stage then uses those hydrogen ions from that first stage and combines them with the carbon dioxide our plant has taken in to make glucose and a little bit of water, but that's mainly used up in our photosynthesis. So what we actually find then is because this stage doesn't require light energy, it can happen both in the day or at night. There are two products we need to remember as being made in photosynthesis. The first one is the glucose, which is an example of a carbohydrate, and that will be used in either respiration by our plants to generate their own energy, or it will be stored in different forms. The second product that we make in photosynthesis is oxygen. Now, some of that will be used in respiration by the plant. The rest of it is going to be released through the stomata in our leaves to the surroundings, which is very beneficial for us because without our plants, we wouldn't have the oxygen that allows us to survive. Now, our glucose can actually be used for a whole variety of different things. So we can actually change the glucose into another sugar called sucrose. Now, this is easy to transport because it dissolves in water, and this is the sugar that we find stored in fruit. We can also change glucose into another chemical called starch, which is a very useful one for storing large amounts of glucose within our plant. We'll also use some glucose to make cellulose, and that's the chemical that we use to build the cell walls. Some of it, as I've already said, is used in respiration to generate energy for these different processes to occur within our plant. And then other glucose will actually be broken down and converted into proteins or fats. There are a few reasons behind us actually storing our glucose as starch. The first one is if we at a later stage need a supply of glucose to carry out respiration, then all we do is we convert that starch back into the glucose monomers and then it can be utilised in respiration. So we've always got that supply of glucose stored within our plant as starch. The second one is that starch is insoluble. That means it's not going to dissolve, which is really important when we're thinking about getting that water balance within our cells. So what we actually find then is because our starch doesn't dissolve, then it doesn't affect the water concentration inside the cells. Finally, remember that in our plants we also have respiration taking place all the time. So whereas photosynthesis only happens in the day, and what we see there is our plant will take in carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen as photosynthesis occurs, respiration, which happens all the time, then at night what we'll see is oxygen will have to be taken into our plant and therefore they will release carbon dioxide. So we do have to have respiration taking place in all living things. So every single living cell carries out respiration, because that's how we get energy. And that energy is obviously needed for a variety of different things like growth, reproduction, and all those other processes that enable survival. So just remember, photosynthesis only in the day, respiration all the time.